Hi all, welcome to the infographic tutorial. So in this tutorial, we are going to go over a couple of different types of infographics that you can design, and I'll kind of go over some approaches to designing them. So in this tutorial, we're going to kind of focus on choosing type for these different designs. And then we're going to do a little bit of a focus on using stock assets that already exist in the world to help your design process along a little bit. So, there's illustrating everything yourself, which can totally be done, but sometimes you just aren't able to do that, and stock assets are a good way to go depending on the type of project that you're working on, and what you've got going on. So that's going to be the two focuses as choosing fonts, placing type, and then using some stock illustration assets to kind of help your design along a little bit. So I have 3 different types of infographic that I set up, and make sure you download. There's 3 files for you to download for this tutorial. So you should have this exact same file available and open for you to work on. So anyway, we've got a timeline type infographic, a pie chart, and then a bar graph. And so the other thing that I'm going to cover in this tutorial also is how to use your infographic chart options in Illustrator. You've got a bunch of different types of charts that you can use, and you can input data into them and use those in your illustrations. So that is the third component, I suppose, that we're going to cover. All right, so I am going to try to hurry along, but not too fast, right? Not too fast, not too slow, somewhere in the middle, so that on the one hand, you get a lot of good information. On the other hand, this tutorial isn't too terribly long. So let's see how I do. Now, when you create an infographic, it's really hard to decide what to do. And I often suggest to students to use something in your life and to use humor. So use yourself as a source, and using humor will get you to an infographic pretty quickly, because humorous infographics are, it's to make a particular point, not to necessarily be accurate in science or statistics or anything like that, right? You're just kind of making a point. So here's my first one. This is a timeline type infographic. So it shows, a timeline is from start to finish an amount of time in someone's life. And then you show the differences in time between different steps of a process, basically. Sometimes it can be used to show like the history of video games, or, there's all kinds of different infographics out there. But so my timeline is my creative process for design projects. So I have meet with client, sketching, begin design work, and then I'm going to just try something really quick and see how it looks. And then I meant to edit this text right here. And I'm going to say, let the rabbit hole begin. So then here's the rabbit hole, and you can see my timeline gets all twisted, and this is taking forever. And I'm off track on my creative process, right? Let the rabbit hole begin. Ha ha, that's the humor, that's the punchline. And then, well, perhaps this is actually the punchline. Then we get to the end of it, and I say, well, that was fun, but I'm not using any of it. Great, finish the design work, and then deliver to happy client. So, obviously, some humor in there. And then, so what we're going to do is I'm going to use the artboard below to kind of lay all this stuff out. And I want you guys to follow along with me in the tutorial, but of course make your own edits as we go. Like, you can change what this text says, or whatever. You can be creative and do it in your own way, but I just want to see that you are able to kind of lay out the basic things that I'm going over, which is picking fonts for this, and then using the stock assets when we get to that. So I am just going to grab all of this. I'm going to marquee select the whole thing. And this is my sketch, and I want to leave my sketch on that other artboard. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to hold my Option key down, and I'm going to drag it down to duplicate this and bring it, and you can see it didn't work actually. I do this quite often. So I'm going to Command or Control Z, and sometimes, like if you hold down Option and you've got your duplication arrows, but you don't drop it and you let go of the key too fast, it'll just, it's just dragging the assets from one artboard to another, and it's not actually completing the copy. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to find the stock assets that I'm going to use for this particular composition. So those of you that are familiar with me know that my go-to is Vecteezy, but there are tons of sites to get stock vectors from, and you can just use the files that I provided for you to download. But here's Vecteezy. They have a lot of wonderful free assets with no subscription required. I am logged in and I do have a subscription, but there are lots of free assets available. So what I searched for to look for stock assets, I think I did creative process was one search that I did. So you can see there's lots of icons and imagery that might go along with what I'm trying to illustrate in my infographic here. So there's lots of different types of symbols that I could be using. I could see a lot of these being used as illustrative elements on the different steps in the process. Maybe one of these figures here would be a good one to use. And what I can do is kind of use these icons to set the visual style for the infographic, since I know that for this particular project, I'm not going to have time to illustrate stuff myself. This one could be a good one too. I'm kind of liking how that looks. So I already chose mine, but I just wanted to kind of go through what a search might look like. Another search that you could do is brainstorm, which is, part of a creative process, but lots of icons that you could use for, this type of infographic. Oh, I like this one, the brain juggling the light bulbs around. That would be a good one too. So, yeah, this is a way to get illustrative elements into your composition when you don't have time to illustrate them yourself, or it's not time, cost effective, or whatever the situation is. That's stock assets are, and you can alter the stock assets too, right? I mean, definitely the color, but to kind of make it part of the design. But all right, so here's the deal with stock assets. When you download them, they're going to come in an Illustrator file or something called an EPS file or an SVG file. And those are all vector files, so they all open in Illustrator just fine. And these are the elements that I chose for this particular infographic. And let's go ahead and just look at the layers. So you, as the person who downloaded this file, don't really have a lot of control over how the artwork is organized in Illustrator when you open the file. This one happens to be very well organized, and all the symbols are already grouped together. So that is very nice of that person who allowed these assets to be downloaded by other people. So this is a really good example of a nicely organized file. This isn't always the case. Sometimes when you download these files, they are really disorganized and nothing's grouped together. And sometimes you can group them together easily and organize it. But if it's a really big mess and you need to get something done quickly, you might consider just finding different artwork to use. So in this one, I see there's a background layer here, and I don't need that, so I'm just going to select that layer and trash it. It's going to ask me if I'm sure, and I'm going to say yes. And so what I'm going to start doing is I'm just going to move all this artwork over. So I am going to just select everything up here, and I am going, you can go Command or Control C, or you can go to Edit and copy here. I'm going to come over to my project, and I'm going to hit paste, and I'm going to just back out a little bit. And I'm going to move these over to the side. So, and when they come in, if you look in your layers, you're going to see they're all grouped in here too. Easy peasy, very cool. Looks good. All right, so the first thing that I need to do is I need to choose a color scheme for this timeline. So I am going to go ahead and go into libraries, and I am just going to pick something. So I want it to be a little bit lighter. So let me see. I have so many libraries. So I'm going to just pick, how about this one? So I'm going to right click or control click on this, and I'm going to add the theme to my swatches. So, and you can see it's actually quite similar to the color palette that's already there. So the first thing I want to do is I want to drop my background shape on here. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and let's go ahead and open up the colors swatches here, and I'm going to choose probably this light blue for the background. Now I want to move this down to the bottom, but I don't want to have to go into my layers and drag and everything like that. So what you can do is just click on whatever you want to move to the bottom, and you can go to Object, Arrange, and Send to Back, and it's going to shoot this background all the way to the very bottom, and then you don't have to worry about where it is anymore. It's always going to be on the bottom. Another thing I like to do is I like to lock those bottom layers down because I don't want to be accidentally selecting it all the time. So I'm going to go to this rectangle, and I'm just going to lock that in. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is go ahead and, so we have two different types of type on this particular composition. My creative process for design projects, this text can be a little bit more expressive, a little bit more decorative, can have a more distinct visual style. I'm probably going to choose something that's maybe going to go along with these, illustrative elements here. And then when I choose the font for this text, I am going to choose something that is a little bit easier to read, because this is where, I'm going to have my viewer, going to expect them to go through and read all these different areas. So I'm going to pick something that's not as, wouldn't be as decorative or have less of a distinct visual style, and its purpose is more for reading. All right, so what I am going to do, and I'm going to speed this up in the tutorial because, I don't want it to take too long, but I'm going to go ahead and choose a font for these two types of text, and I'm going to move my icons in to the infographic, and I'm going to recolor them in the color scheme that I chose for this project. The other thing that I want to add in this is I'm going to be using a black for the type, but since these are kind of a lighter color scheme, the black I'm going to use is what I like to call like a chalky black, or like a gray black. It's like almost black, but it's really a gray. So I'm going to be using that. In fact, let me just go ahead and recolor this text. And you can see it's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit more subtle. It's not as stark. It is going to drop the contrast a little bit, but that's okay. But I think that this dark gray or chalky black fits more with this color scheme than just the regular stark black that there was. So, okay. So anyways, I'm going to go in and start kind of arranging things, and then I'm going to show you a few more things, and then we'll move on to the next type of infographic. Okay, so I have everything pretty much placed. I have my assets. I've applied color from the color scheme that I've chosen here. And so there's just a couple of things that I want to do. So the first one is I want to make this timeline look a little bit better, and I want to have arrows pointing to these different steps in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and create those. And so let's see, I'm going to go ahead and take the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to go off the board here, and I'm just going to make my shape. What I would like to do is round the corners in a little bit. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to also make an ellipse here, like so, and then I'm going to combine both of these, and I think, yes, that's more of what I want it to have, a rounded end, like the way that the timeline is flowing forward. So I'm going to take these two shapes, and I'm just going to use my Pathfinder tool to combine those. And then I'm going to bring this over. Now you can, do this however you like. But I'm just going to make a new timeline kind of based off of this basic shape. And what I'm kind of mimicking too is the style of the illustrations you can see here is a very rounded look. And I actually need to go ahead and recolor all of these elements as well, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this shape, and I am going to stretch it forward. And in fact, I think what I need to do is start start, from here. go. So that's on, I want the new ones that I create to be, you know, on top. So this one actually, it's almost like we get to this step. Yeah. So this one needs to be in like so. Just give that a different color so we can see the different color here. And then I'm going to take this back. And stretch that forward. Line those up. So I could toy around with, you know, having each color line up with each step. Like maybe this one should be the orange color. Sketching should be pink because I have a pink icon here. Design work could be green. Actually, design work goes all the way to here. And then I'll make this chalky black since we kind of enter the void. And then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and grab one of these and drag it over here. And we'll finish the timeline. Make sure that they line up. See, if I line this up here with the end of this one and I hold down, nope, that's not going to work. The shift key. So if I take it and just drag it a little bit and hold the shift key down, it'll actually lock it. It'll give me kind of grid locks into place. And you can see my sketch for the timeline was actually pretty off. So I have this, my sketch, the line is sitting up much higher than it should be. So these are actually more aligned with what we've got going on. This I'm going to bring to the top. So I can go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front because I wanted this one sitting on the top. This I'm using kind of the orange color. And then here we are, design work is represented by green. Now there's some things going on with the shape of the circle kind of changing. I'm going to let that go. What I probably could do in a perfect world is use, I shouldn't have combined the shapes. I could have just used the rectangle tool and then grabbed the ellipse and group those together, and then I could have, let's see, I could have grouped them together like that, and then I could move this around and then just pull the back of the rectangle out without it affecting the shape up front here. But unfortunately in tutorials, you know, we never have time to go over all of those things because they will take forever, right? So what I'm going to do here for my arrows is I am going to go ahead and select this little path right here, and I'm going to bring the stroke up. I am going to click on the word. Here, let me make this full screen again. So anyways, here in my properties panel, let me just rip this off so that you can see it a little bit better. I am going to choose to click on the word stroke here. I am going to use rounded caps to continue to mimic the illustrative style of what I have going on here. And then I am going to choose an arrowhead, and I don't know which one is going to be the right. It's not that one. So none. And then we're going to choose the other side of it. There we go. And it's actually quite large because of the stroke size. So if you choose the arrowhead and you're like, wow, that's really big, you can bring the stroke size down, and that is going to help. So that is how you can make an arrowhead. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move the arrow to a little bit better position. I'm actually going to, I think this might look better with just a stroke of 1. I'm going to like that a lot better. So what we can do is choose all of the other ones in the entire infographic. So we're going to shift select all of these. Whoa, my goodness. And this one's going to give me trouble because the text is too close to it. So sometimes you got to just move your text around if you're trying to select something and you can't. So we're going to select all these, and then I'm going to take, what I'm going to do is take my eyedropper tool. There's several ways to do this. This is one. Take an eyedropper tool, and then I'm going to click. See, I can't get to the arrow because of the text box. There we go. Oh, it didn't add the arrowhead though. I was hoping if I clicked on that, it would add an arrowhead to everybody else, but I guess it didn't. So I'll go ahead and just add those arrowheads in. The other thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and save my progress, because we always save our project, because if something happens and it crashes, you lose all your work, and that is a big bummer.